Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashyakrutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvabhutaguhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarvavide Namaha. Putra dukkham yathadhyastam Pitra dukkhe svaatmani Ahankarta tathadhyastah Nitya dukkhe svaatmani Sodhyaso neti neti ti Praptavat pratishidyate Bhoyodhyasa videh kaschita Kutaschinno papadyate Atmaniha yathadhyasah Pratishedastathaiva ca Maladhyasa nishedhokhe Kriyete ca yatha budhaihi Praptaschet pratishiddheta Moksho nityo bhaved dhruvam Ato prapta nishedhoyam Divyagnichayana divata. Now explaining what is meant by adhyasa. Adhyasa is superimposition that takes place by default. That no intention is involved there. In fact, in case of adhyasa taking place in the self, no awareness is involved. It just happens, meaning that our present conclusions about ourselves, our present understanding about ourselves, what I take myself to be, is the result of adhyasa. As I know myself to be as such and such, at any given moment, what I am keeps changing depending upon the situation. I am father, mother, son, daughter, good, bad, indifferent. In each of these conclusions about myself, there is involved this adhyasa or superimposition, meaning that taking myself to be different from or contrary to what I am, like taking a rope to be a snake, quite contrary, or taking a shell which is without any value to be silver, which is valuable. So, rope snake is the example of dvesha, and shuktika rati is the example of raga. Of course, they are the examples for superimposition taking place upon something other than myself. That's an example. But here, a similar phenomenon is happening about I am doing it upon myself, you can say. Or ahankara is doing it upon himself. Simple example, putra dukkham yatha pitra sve atmani adukhe adhyastam. That the son is very unhappy, suffering. And even though father has no reason to suffer, adukhe sve atmani, the self that is, has no reason to be unhappy or sad, but he becomes sad because of the sadness of his son or someone who is very dear to him. So, how the pain of what is dear to us is unconsciously superimposed upon ourselves and we feel it. Now, what is the reason doesn't matter, it's empathy, that is not the point here. Point is how I feel the pain which is located elsewhere. Is asakti in this case. The asakti that the father has for the son, that is what is meant here. Empathy, it's a value, then it's a different matter. This example of how what happens elsewhere is happening in me. Similarly also, tatha nitye adukhe svayatmane. Similarly also in one's atma, my atma, the self that is of the nature of ananda. Adukha is to show the contrast. Just as father is adukhi. For adukha, the dukkha is superimposed, quite contrary is superimposed. So similarly, atma is called adukhi. Upon that, the ahankarta is adhyastha, the atma, the ananda swarupaha. In this case, atma there is actionless, really speaking. Upon that, the karta, the agent of action is superimposed. And this stands for every kind of superimposition. Upon the one that is limitless, the limited net is superimposed. One that is ananda, upon that the dukkha is superimposed. So this is example of all kinds of contrary superimpositions that are taking place. Don't worry about dukkha, that's not the point here. The point is how totally contradictory thing is superimposed. That's what the idea is. Meaning that there is adhyasa in our life. In how I look upon myself, adhyasa or superimposition is involved. Why does a particular kind of notion arise? Is there a reason why I look upon myself in a certain way? There is a reason. That father looks upon himself as dukkhi because dukkha is there someplace in son. Similarly, I look upon myself as limited because limitation is there somewhere in the upadhi. So then I look upon myself as limited being and therefore inadequate being. lacking, wanting, being. This is the basic, the notion I have about myself. The limitedness, lack, want is all someplace. Where is it? In the buddhi, in the body, in the mind, sense complex. And what belongs to the upadhi is by default thought to be belonging to me. Now this is called adhyasa by Vedanta. And the reason for such a superimposition is always ignorance, because I do not know the true nature of myself. And therefore, I take myself to be contrary to what I am. For adhyasa to take place, the general requirement is that we have the samanya jnana of something and not the vishesha jnana. In case of a rope snake, I have samanya jnanam that something is there. Vishesha jnanam that this is rope, that part is not there. If I don't see that object at all, samanya jnanam also is not there, then pitch darkness, no adhyasa can take place. If samanya jnana is there, vishesha jnana also is in broad daylight, I know object is this as well as rope, again no superimposition. But in the twilight condition when I see and don't quite recognize, the recognition is not there, or wrong recognition is there. That is the classical condition for adhyasa to take place. Atma is self-effulgent, self-revealing, therefore I cannot but be aware of myself. See, that I am is always, I am aware of that fact. But that I am limitless, I am not aware of that aspect, the special, the vishesha. Therefore, in that part, I superimpose limitedness upon what is limitless. I superimpose all contrary notions. Not that I do it deliberately, it happens. So this is a prakriya. It is a model to explain why we are feeling the way we are feeling about ourselves. Because, as the Upanishad says, you are Brahma. And Upanishad knows who I am. So that is called Shraddha in the Upanishad, that Upanishad knows better about me than what I do. Upanishad says, Tattvamasi, you are Brahman. And therefore, I begin from there. And then I question, then if I am Brahman, why do I think like this? Why do you think I am a jiva, limited being, helpless creature? Why do I think that way? Why do you think I am a small, inadequate, little lacking, wanting being? So I don't ask this question, how can I be limitless when I am feeling limited? My question is, when Upanishad says I am limitless, why do I feel limited? So that is when this explanation came. That limitedness happens elsewhere in the body-mind sense complex. And somehow by default that limitedness is thought to be mine, belonging to me. Like a wealthy actor who is playing the role of a beggar may think that I am the beggar. And all the limitedness of the beggar is superimposed upon himself. So again adhyasa is another example. A better example. Because we are talking about superimposition upon the self, which is what an actor does. Meaning that all that I think about myself is all false. That's the whole idea. I have not looked into these conclusions. I have not subjected this conclusion to the scrutiny of reasoning whether I have reason to think like this or conclude like this. That is given. And then whole of my life is based on these conclusions about me. And basic conclusion, I am inadequate. Therefore, the whole life is dedicated to becoming adequate. Depends on the ego. So, somebody's inadequacy is a problem, for somebody something else is a problem. Can be intellectual problem, emotional problem, social problem, whatever problems are there, the root of them is I am a needy being. Whether need is of an emotion, need is this XY, recognition, need is. Depends on which aspect in me is predominant. That I am a needy being. And my life becomes a process of all the time trying to fulfill a need which is an imagined need. That's what Upanishad says, Vedanta says. Sodhyaso neti neti pratishidyate. Hey, you are not small, limited, inadequate, lacking, wanting, being. That is false. So Upanishad helps us to how to see myself. Basically, that's what it is. I have a way of seeing myself right now. Upanishad guides me as to how to look at myself. That the way you're looking at yourself has this problem, which is what is called adhyasa here. So, sodhyaso neti neti iti pratishidyate. That I am lacking, no, you are not lacking. I am wanting, you are not wanting. I am needy, you are not needy. In our language, we can say that. Sthula, sthula manam, this is okay, but this is what, in fact, applies to our life. Whenever we do anything, there is already a conclusion of myself, and that is an entity that is doing whatever it is doing, talking, walking, anything that we are doing. We can confront ourselves right then. Say, wait, who is doing this? The karma, everything comes later. If you can deal with this, you don't need anything else. Who is doing this? A daughter is doing, son is doing, father is doing. Or what kind of need, basically, from what need this whole thing arises? Every desire is the expression of need. That I am a needy. So I question that. And at least I can intellectually understand that this is a wrong notion about myself. That need may not go away because the intellectual problems become emotional problem. And therefore I must emotionally act in a manner that is where the karma yoga comes. So I bring in the emotion of, being a contributor, being a devotee. That's how bhakti comes. So therefore, my life should become a process of negating adhyasa. Not justifying this ahankara. All the time, this pure vipurim justifies ahankara, justifies oneself. That's a trap. And not that I don't have to condemn myself or anything. At the same time, I cannot justify. my demands, my expectations. That's what the ahankara results into. Anyway, so that is how to put this teaching into practice. But then, you don't need, if you are adhikari, you don't need anything. Bhuyo adhyasa vedi. So, that is adhyasas pratishiddhate. Once adhyasa is gone, there is no kartrutva. How can you say, now do prasankhyanam? So therefore, these arguments are made to dismiss prasankhyanam. In the process, the whole mechanism is explained here, the anatomy is explained here of the way we feel and what our life is. Atma, so then adhyasa, you always give example of rope snake, etc. No, Atma also can become the object of the substratum of adhyasa. Atmani adhyasa, itha adhyasa, pratishedas tathaiva cha. The way the adhyasa is done of Atma, in that way pratisheda is done. Asthulam anano is adhyasa done on Brahman. Upon me, if I do adhyasa, then I am a karta, bhokta, good, bad, indifferent, needy, inadequate, or whatever. So that is how the pratisheda should take place. At a given point in time, I should recognize what adhyasa am I making, based on what is my present notion about myself. How does that notion arise? What is superimposed upon I? From where does it come? And that is negated. So negation is very specific. Nisheda is based on adhyaropa. So if I look upon myself as a needy being at a given point in time, then I ask, where does the need, before fulfilling the need, where does it arise from? Where the real need is, where the inadequacy is, where the limitedness is. Not that you should not fulfill the need, that's not the point. First understand and decide. If you think you need to fulfill, go ahead and do that. But then you know why you are doing. Thus, being aware of myself, recognizing how habitually the adhyasa is taking place, how constantly I have a conclusion about myself. Since I do not question that conclusion, how that becomes the basis of what I do and how I live. But that comes later. Here, Atmani Haithat. So, there is no rule that adhyasas take place in something other than myself. It can take place upon myself because the conditions for adhyasa obtain for Atma also. Condition is not that the adhisthana is different from me. Condition of adhyasa is that the samanya jnana is there and vishesha jnana is not there. Ahamasmi sadabhami. It's always there that I am. But that I am non-dual, that vishesha is not there. Therefore, the classical conditions of adhyasa very much obtain with reference to oneself. That's how here the self itself becomes adhishthanam, substratum for superimposition. Praptaschet prasiddheda. Understand that it's a notion. What the Upanishad is negating is not the reality about you, I'm inadequate. That's not reality about you, that's what you think. When Upanishad says you are not inadequate, you are adequate, it is not that real inadequacy is negated, it is a notional inadequacy that is negated. But since I do not have notion as notion, so it is reality for me. But then in Upanishad, you are not inadequate. Not that an inadequate being is being told you are an adequate person, entity. The take himself inadequate is being told you are not inadequate. You follow? a limitless self that takes itself limited for whatever reason. So, that limitedness about self is negated, which is a notional limitedness. Not that the one that is really limited is told you are limitless. One who is limitless but thinks I am limited is being told you are not limited. Just drop that. Recognize how limitedness comes. What is the reason why, and recognize that. You can't drop it unless you recognize the reason. I can give up something only when I know what I am holding on is wrong, otherwise I can't give it up. When I am holding to the notion that I am limited, where is the mistake made there? When I see that, oh yes, the limitedness belongs here to the body, to the mind. The need belongs there, thirst belongs there. When I recognize that, then I see what Upanishad means. I said, no, that's not right. So when I realize that, what is the reason for a given notion? What superimposition is taking place? So that is why the Upanishad gives us a Panchakosha Viveka. What belongs to body is superimposed upon self, what belongs to mind, what belongs to prana, what belongs to intellect. And how this superimposition, you call it, identification, you call it, brings about a variety of notions. And I see, oh yeah, why do I? Oh, because I take intellect to be myself. I take emotion to be myself. I take prana to be myself. Body to be myself. More I recognize the anatomy or mechanism of what brings about that notion, easier it is for me to drop it. You can't drop it otherwise. You cannot drop something unless you see that it is wrong. You have to see. So Upanishad invites us when it says pratisheda takes place, negation takes place. You can't negate unless you see it is negatable. So that Upanishad says, now look, you're not a man, you're not a woman. Why? So how does the idea of man arise in me? Oh yes, a manhood is someplace in the body. Womanness is there, thisness is there, son there, daughter, they're all there someplace. Not where I take them to be. So son, daughter is not negated. My conclusion that I am a son or I am a daughter, that is negated, understand? Or aprapta nishedhoyam. Therefore, this nisheda, very important is that, not that the real son is negated, but one who takes oneself to be son, that aspect is negated. Now this is explored further. Proceeding with the verse 24. Thus Vedanta emphasizes all the time there is no bondage in Atma. No real bondage. It is the imagined bondage. It's called projected bondage. So projection is the word that is used. Or superimposed bondage. Projection of what belongs to one place is thought to be elsewhere. So the next, continuing with the verse 24, the Tikas Atmani Bandha Sambandha Bodhaka Pramana Abha. This is a technical way of describing. How do you see that I am bound? Atmani Bandha Sambandha. Bandha means bondage, limitedness. When I conclude that I am a limited being, how do you connect Atma with limitedness? Means I am limited, what we have done is, Atma and limited are bonded, are lumped together, connected, isn't it? If the tree falls, I don't say that I fell down because I know that falling belongs there. There is no connection. But this sambandha meaning there, or you can say on the same location, samadhikaranya. Atma and limitedness, both of them are placed, given the same status, same locus. So connected them. Bondage means limitedness. The Atma and limitedness cannot be connected. In Atma and nothing can be connected. There cannot be sambandha of Atma with anything. In this case, bandhan, bondage or limitedness. Atmani, bandha sambandha. So, on what basis do you conclude that I am limited? Have you seen a limited eye? I see an orange cloth. So, orange and cloth, this exist simultaneously in the same location. So, the reason that orangeness is connected to cloth because then the same locus. The partners and this object also are connected because in the same locus. Therefore, the part possesses partners. So, partners is connected to this entity. Similarly, when I say I am limited, the I am limited, do they belong to the same locus? Is it possible for you to see a limit? When you say I am limited, can you see limited self? Have you seen it? Experience. Can you experience? Point is, can you experience the self and limitedness? So this limitedness cannot be connected to Atma or any other notion that I have. That notion arises because I place Atma, the self, and that entity, son, daughter, father, mother, limited, into same status I give them. But they belong to different locations, there is no connection between them. And therefore, there is no way that the self and limitedness can be connected. They call it bondage, and I call it limitedness. Atmani bandha sambandha bodhaka pramana abhadapi. There is no way that I can experience or I can see the limitedness in Atma because there is no way that Atma and limitedness can coexist. Atma cannot be experienced. Atma cannot be experienced by the conventional means. So the limitedness can be experienced. That I am mortal, the mortal part is experienced. That I am so and so, but I am is not experienced. And what is experienced that so and so, limited, mortal, is joined by me with I am. But I am cannot become the object of knowledge as limitedness is. Limitedness is the object of knowledge by the valid means of knowledge, like perception, like inference. Atma cannot be known that way, Atma cannot be perceived. Therefore, Atma is not an object of experience, not an object of knowledge. Whereas limitedness is an object of knowledge or experience. I connect them, but in fact there is no logical reason to connect them. So, bandha sambandha bodhaka pramana abhavat, bandha sambandha bodhaka. That which will let me understand that I am bound or that I am limited. How do you say that? I experience it. How do you experience? By what? By eyes? By ears? By mind? How do you experience it? How can you experience I am which is not experienceable anyway? So how we take things for granted? Na tatra bandhasya satyada prapti. Therefore, the bandha or limitedness and Atma cannot coexist. The limitedness is an experience or known through the valid means of I can see limitedness, I can feel limitedness, I can infer limitedness. I cannot see Atma, cannot feel Atma, cannot infer Atma, because I am Atma. So the verse 24 says, Sambhavyo gochare shabdah Pratyayo vana chanyatha न संभाव्यो तदात्मत्वात् अहंकर्तुस्तथैव च. So, Shabda is a pramana. That this is a mountain. Or I saw a mountain. I saw the lake, so and so. So, call it Shabda, call it the Vakya. That's the pramana for us to know that there is a lake and of such and such thing. So, Shabda is a standard pramana. For us, Upanishadi Shabda. So, Atmani Bandha Sambandha Pramana Shabda Pramanantaram Va. Is it that somebody says you are bound? Is that statement enough for me to understand or see the bondage in me? Or do you perceive yourselves pratyaksha? Do you infer your limitedness? So standard pramana or means of knowledge are there. Pratyaksha, anumanam, upamanam, arthapatti, anupalabdhi and shabda. Pratyaksha is perception with sense organs. Anumanam, inference that I arrive. Pratyaksha is direct knowledge, others are all indirect knowledge. Paroksha jnana. So inference that there must be fire. Upamanam, that this like this must be gavya, gavaya. Or arthapatti, that this must be happening because otherwise it cannot be so. Anupalabdhi, this thing is not there. Anupalabdhi is to determine the absence of something. And Shabda, by listening to the description or whatever, we know. But only Pratyaksha is immediate knowledge, rest are all indirect knowledge, Paroksha jnana. None of these pramanas have the scope as far as Atma is concerned. All these means of knowledge given to us have scope with reference to only what can be objectified. Pratyaksha means I objectify something, my sense object. So what can be objectified? My organs of perception. And based on that, this I can objectify smoke that I see. Based on that, anumanam, I infer the presence of fire. I don't see fire, but I infer. I see this person putting on weight, but I see him not eating. I imagine he must be eating when I am not around. That's arthapatti. That mother comes home and sees that all laddus are missing, 3 laddus out of them missing. I don't know. But unless this fellow is eaten, how can they be missing? So by arthapatti, you eaten them. This is the conclusion here. I said. Unless this fellow is eaten, they cannot be missing. Anyathanupatti. So these things are used by us every day today. I see, I inferred, it is road, wet, so it must have rained. I see the effect, I imagine, infer the cause, I see the cause, I can infer the effect, the clouds are gathering, so I can infer that it may rain. There are various grounds of inference. But all of these, and Shabda is the final one. So, sambhavyo gochare shabda. All these pramanas, including shabda, have their object or subject in gochara. What is indriya gochara? What can be objectified as sense organs? They alone can become the object of our experience. Either direct experience or indirect experience, but then anything that is the object of sense organs alone can become the object of experience. Gochara means indriya gochara. Gochare shabda sambhavya. Shabda or a description can give me knowledge, provide a description of what can be perceived. Gochara is object of perception of sense organs. Shabda pratyayo or pratyaya. When you utter a word, then a pratyaya arises in me, recognition arises in me, yes, this is so and so. Nanyatha. Nothing can become the object of experience unless it is the object of sense organs. Or a corresponding notion takes place, or corresponding recognition or thought takes place from that. So a part thought or a pratyaya, a notion of concept of part takes place, that can become the object of knowledge. Or a part is object of my sense organs, that can become object of knowledge. Meaning that what we can experience and what we can know is only confined to this. The sambhavyo tadatmatvat. But here the person who is perceiving or inferring, Atma is the very self of that entity. Ahankartuhu. The ahankara, the individual is perceiving, is inferring, I am doing that. What is Atma? So what is other than me can only become the object of perception, inference, etc. I cannot become object of my perception because they cannot be split of the perceiver perceived in the same entity. I cannot ride on my own shoulders. If I cannot perceive myself, then inference all based on perception also cannot apply. But I know who I am so and so, that is called pratyaya. That also doesn't really make Atma as the object, something else is the object. I know I am limited, the limited is something else, not Atma. The sambhavyo tadatmatvat ahankartuhu. It is Atma of the person who is doing the entity that is doing, gaining knowledge by perception, etc., and concluding. And also it is Atma of the pramana, perception also. Atma is Atma of all this pramana, as well as the person who is using those pramana. So Atma does not fall in the category of gochara. Gochara means available for objectification by sense organs, by the mind, by the intellect. So inference is all objectified by the mind. These objects are objectified by the sense organs. When you infer the fire, then fire is not perceptual, but then your mind objectifies that. So what can be objectified by the sense organs? What can be objectified? Pratyaya means by the mind. They can only be experienced by you. Atma does not fall in that category because it is self of the perceiver or trying to experiencer and self of the very perception, etc. also. And therefore, you cannot justify any conclusion about yourself. That is why, and then still you say, I am so and so. So how did you do that? When it is not possible logically for you to have any conclusion about yourself because you cannot experience yourself, and still you have all notions about it, that shows that they are adhyasa, they are superimpositions, they are notions and not reality about you. This part, of course, I can perceive, and therefore the part is object of perception, and the pratyaya, the cognition of part also takes place in my mind. And so anything about this is all right. Any claim that I make or any judgment I have about this is likely to be valid. But about Atma, I have all kinds of judgment for which I have no ground because I cannot experience Atma as experience part. And part stands for the sense object of sense organ. And that alone can become the object of my experience directly or indirectly. Atma does not fall in that category, therefore I cannot experience that directly or indirectly also, I can infer about myself, etc. That means that all the notions about myself are all false. But I know I am limited. How do you know? I experience. You cannot. So this shows that every conclusion about myself has no basis. That's called adhyasa. When there's no base still happening, that's called adhyasa, superimposition. So the Tika says, Ayam artha Atmani bandha sambandha bodhakam pramanam shabdaha. Bandha sambandha. How do you connect Atma with limitedness? Either somebody says that you are limited, I see that you are, yeah. Pramanantaram va or other pramana. Pratyaksha, anumana, upamana, arthapatti, anupalabdhi. Sarvathapi na upadyate. None of these pramanas, none of these means of knowledge have the scope in Atma, the scope in Anatma. Shabda pratyayava. So from the verse, sambhavya gochara shabda pratyayava iti. The sambhavya, that na comes. So, or sambhavya gochara shabda. Shabda pratyaya have the scope with reference to sense object. Pratyaya pramanantara janya. So here Shabda and Pratyaya, two words are used. So Tika says, Shabda stands for the knowledge that takes place when we hear something, and Pratyaya is the knowledge that takes place by other means of knowledge like Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana. So Shabda is separated here because Upanishad is Shabda. All these Upadesh is given through Shabda. So that is why Shabda is distinguished from other ones, otherwise it's in the same category. So Tika says, Shabdo va Pratyayo va loke gochare vishay sambha. Loka means our day-to-day life. Shabda, the word, Pratyaya, other means of knowledge, Gochare, Sambhavya, all of them have their scope. Sambhavya, their scope, with Gochara, that which can be objectified. Sambhavya, Sambhavana, Yogya, it is possible to know something that can be objectified. Even if I do not objectify now, if it is objectifiable, as in heaven, for example. There are things in the earth which you don't see them, but they are available for objectification now or sometime. Then all of them fall in the category of gochara, meaning they are objectifiable. Nacha anyatha vishayatva yogya. What cannot become vishaya? Only an object can become the object of knowledge. What doesn't have objectivity? So, yat sarva vishayatitam tasmai sarvede namah vishayatita. The subject is vishayatita. Vishaya means object. Subject has no objectivity at all. Vishayatva yoga in subject, all these pramana, the conventional means of knowledge are not applicable. Therefore, we have no reason to make any conclusion about ourselves because the self cannot become object of experience. So to illustrate, tathacha, shashti, jati, so it takes shabda first. For shabda or a word or a sentence to make us know something about a person. So shashti means sambandha. So this is my cousin. So if you want to, say something about or reveal somebody, hey, this is my cousin, then I realize that the sambandha, by sambandha we know. Raja Purusha is a standard example given, Rajnyaha Purusha related to Raja. Jati, Brahmana, Kshatriya, man, woman, human being, Jati, based on the birth. Guna, good, bad, red, yellow. Kriya, a driver, cook. So that is also we know by the Kriya that an entity is performing. These are Shabda Pravut. So word or sentence can describe an entity which possesses one or more of this Visheshata, one or more of these qualifications. Atma is devoid of all qualifications, therefore nimitta rahitasya. So Atma is devoid of any nimitta or any reason which would make it available for being described by word. Atma doesn't possess any qualification which can make it being described by words. Na shabda gocharam sambhavyate. So shabda, that is why somehow shabda is separated, because Upanishad is shabda. Even those also cannot objectify Atma. Even word Brahman cannot objectify Brahman. That's the whole idea. न शब्द गोचर संभाव्येन अयमात्मा संसारित बोध शब्दाद उत्पद्येत इति. So Shabda cannot become the means of knowing that I am a samsari. So I am a samsari. How do you... So I and samsara are connected. How did you connect them? I am dukhi, I am limited. How did you connect them? That connection cannot... Because samsara is experience. If I could be experienced, then you can connect the two. So I experience the pot, and I experience the color, then I can say the pot is red. Because red also can be experienced, pot is also experienced, same location, then I say this is red pot. So also experience I and samsara in the same locus, and I can say I am a samsari. So samsari is experienced, but I cannot be experienced, therefore how do you connect them? So samsari or samsarasyasti, one who possesses samsara is samsari. So a connection is already, in that conclusion, a connection is there. The I and samsara are connected for me to conclude that I am samsari. How did you connect them? If I and samsara, both of them can be experienced at the same time, but samsara is always an object. And therefore, I is not experienced where samsara is experienced. Therefore, we have no valid reason to conclude that I am a samsari. Samsara asya asti iti samsari. Because I and samsara cannot be experienced at the same time. If I experience myself, there can be no samsara. When I experience samsara, there is no I. Therefore, this conclusion, I am a samsari, doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense, then let it go. So that is what the teacher wants to say, that my conclusion that I am samsari has no valid reason, does not make sense. And therefore, I should not validate that conclusion. Tatha rupadhihinatvat. Already Shabda is then pratyaya, means other pramana, so perception. When it can be objectified by sense organs, rupadhihinatvat, so rupa, Shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha, these are the objects which are objectified by respective sense organs. Shrotra, tvak, chakshuhu, rasana, granam. Bhashyendriya varga tasmin na kramate. Therefore, Bhashyendriya varga, Indriya varga, this group of sense organs, Bhashyendriya varga, the group of external sense organs, like the organs of perception. Na kramate, they cannot reach there. They have no scope there. ataheva na tatsvarupa sambandhataya linga vishesha agrahanat anumana arthapatti abhi tasmin na sambhavatah. Now, fire can be inferred provided fire and smoke are connected. Yatra yatra dhumaha tatra tatra bandhi. So this is called linga. Smoke is called the linga, which is invariably connected with fire. But nothing can be connected to Atma. Therefore, nothing can become the linga of the Atma. Na tat swarupa sambandhataya. With fire, the smoke is connected, and that becomes the linga or the evidence for inferring fire. There is nothing that is connected to Atma which can become the linga or evidence to infer the Atma. Linga vishesha agrahanat. Nothing is connected. See, smoke is connected to fire. Therefore, smoke can become the linga, the evidence for inferring fire. Nothing, Atma is asanga, not connected to anything. So nothing can become the linga or the reason for inferring Atma. Arthapatti also requires a linga. This fellow is putting on weight, so that evidence is there, and therefore you conclude that he must be eating sometime when we don't see him. So, Anumanam and Arthapatti both of them require some chinha, some linga, some evidence of smoke connected to the fire or eating connected to the entity. Then you can infer or you can presume nothing is connected to Atma, therefore Atma cannot become the object of Anumana or Arthapatti. Avayavadi abhavatna upamanam. Upamanam is comparison. A standard given example is given is a gavaya. Looks like a bull, like a cow. So somebody says in the forest there is gavaya, which is like cow. Now you never seen this gavaya. Now you go to forest, happen to go there. You see an animal. There is not cow, but looks very similar to cow. Then remember, hey, this is gavaya because of similarity. So anumanam, similarity. But Atma is not similar, nothing is similar to Atma. Therefore, this anumanam also is not possible. Upama is not possible, comparison. Here's avayava. So even a cow also can be seen because it has various limbs, is an assembly of various limbs. Then gavaya is another assembly. So from one assembly you can, compare with other one. So therefore no ground for upamanam also. You cannot say Atma is not anupalabdhi for establishing absence of something. But Atma is always there, bhava rupatva, therefore it cannot become the object of anupalabdhi. Then what? Pratiti matram parishishyate. Pratiti is there. Experience you can call it or, but it is not a perception. You are experiencing Atma if you want to use the word. But you are not perceiving Atma, not inferring Atma, not arriving by anumanam, arthapatti, anupalabdhi. You are not arrived at that I am. That I am is not result of perception. Cannot be. Because the perception is a scope to sense organs and all pramanas are sense, and this is not an object, subject. The I am cannot be perceived, cannot be objectified by any means of knowledge. Pratiti matram but pratiti is there, I am. Not that I have seen I am, not I feel I am, I infer I am. No. So for I am there is no way of arriving at how do you know that you are. So then you say I am limited. Now limited can be experienced, but I am cannot be. How do you put them together? How do you connect them? Therefore, it is not pramana siddho bandha sambandha. Bandha is pramana siddha, bondage. But bandha sambandha, Atma and bondage cannot be connected. Atma is experience, all right. Bandha is experience, all right, limited, but they cannot be. For you, there is no reason to say, I am limited, The I am is experienced, but not in a conventional way. Limited is experienced in a conventional way. But then you are joining them together, connecting them, and there is no way that they can be connected because they do not belong to the same locus. The orangeness and the cloth should belong to the same locus for us to connect that. The cloth is orange. Iti na pramana siddho bandha sambandha. Therefore, you keep on saying that I am so and so. Who says? I know. How do you know? Meaning that we have no valid ground for the conclusions that we have about ourselves. And primary conclusions, I am needy. Who says? Who is needy? My body is needy. My ego is needy. But I am needy. How do you connect? I am a needy. There is no way. Need is there someplace. But I am is not connected. Therefore, if body is needy, I have no problem. If something else is needy and limited, I have no problem. The problem is when that neediness, limited, is connected to I. That is when the problem. So how do you connect them? Even death is not a problem. Anything can become a problem only when connected to I. Understand this? This connection we establish. Happiness also can come only when it's connected to I. So in India, wins the match, I'm happy. This connection is there. And you feel sad, oh, they lost it. Because I connect them with I, therefore India winning, losing creates happiness and unhappiness. If Australia wins and loses, nothing happens to me. I'm not. If I don't connect with I. If something happens in the United States, I am connected because I'm connected with that. I think, so something happening there may create a feeling in me. Not something happening in Timbuktu, nothing happens to me. All right, turn the page. So how something can be important to me, relevant to me, only when it's connected with I. But nothing can be connected with I, and you are already assuming that connection and living your life and doing things, isn't it? Nobody can give you this insight, other than Vedanta. It just addresses a very fundamental mechanism. Ityatha na sambhavyo atmani shabda pratyaveti. Therefore, with Atma cannot become a meaning of a word, nor can it be experienced by sense organs. Kincha, furthermore, tad atmatvat, another reason. Number one, Atma is not gochara. Second, Atma is Atma. Tad atmatvat, tasya atmatvat. It is Atma, the very fellow who concludes that I am so and so Atma cannot be experienced by anybody because Nainam chindandi shastrane nainam dahati pavakaha. Atma cannot be cut asunder by any shastra or weapons because the Atma is a weapon. Meaning that a sword cannot cut itself. You follow? Fire cannot burn itself. Water cannot wet itself. Atma being the self of these means of destruction, they can't, sword cannot destroy itself. Fire cannot burn itself. And then all conventional source of destruction, they are not because atmatvat. So ahankartu atmatvat, ahankara pramatru abhimatasya pramatutva, the knower, the one is inferring, one is perceiving, one is concluding. Atma cannot become object of conclusion. It is the Atma of the concluder also. You can use the word concluder, means the one who is concluding. So, ahankarta is what? Pramata, the knower, the one who is concluding. The self being the Atma of that, therefore, it cannot become the object of. You can't conclude. You don't have any ground for conclusion. Tadatmatvat, or Brahmatmatva, call it Brahman, call it Atma. Natad gochara upadyate. Everybody knows that Brahman is not available for any means of knowledge. Atma is Brahman, therefore, not available for any means of knowledge. Then, agantukayoho, shabda pratyayoho, ahankarturva, chidatmana, prasak swarupamasti. If Shabda was separate from Atma, then Shabda can reveal Atma. Pratyaya also, the notion in the mind also is never apart from consciousness. Ahankarta, the pramata also is never apart from consciousness. You must create a distance to know something. The knower and the known should be different, then only you can know. But then Atma is the very nature of the knower, very content of the knower. So knower cannot objectify Atma. We can know anything that we can objectify. Atma cannot be. Being the Atma of the objectifier of the knower. And also Pratyaksha and word. Atma is Atma of all of them also. Therefore Shabda cannot objectify Atma, nor Pratyaksha, etc. So Shabda Pratyayo Ahankarturva Chidatmana Pruthak Rupatvam Nasti. For something to become object of knowledge, it should stand apart from me, I should stand apart from that. The subject-object duality must be there for me to know something. I cannot split myself into a subject-object. Svatmanitu Kriya Anupatti Hityartha. In Svatma Kriya. Kriya means I cannot act upon myself. I cannot be the agent of action and the action itself. So Kriya, Karma can object of action. Kriya and Karma cannot. Kriya means the subject-object cannot coexist. Subject is always separate from object. Therefore, all the Ahankar, etc., all of them are in the category of object, and therefore they cannot objectify the very subject. That Atma, that is subject, the innermost core, cannot become the means of any knowledge. Therefore, whatever conclusions you have about yourself have no validity, because how did you arrive at this conclusion? I am a limited. How do you say a limited being? You are so. How can you say that? Because of saying that the limitedness and I must be connected, then I can say I am limited, isn't it? Nothing can be connected to I am. Therefore, no conclusion is valid. Samsara is not valid. So that is why when you say I am limited, you are not. The pratisheda takes place because you are entertaining the notion, and they are not. They are only telling you a fact. It is not that they are dismissing you. They are telling you a fact about yourself that this is wrong. So when you say you are not limited, means that I am limited is the wrong conclusion. You know basis for saying you are limited. How do you say you are limited? Therefore, pratisheda, negation is done of something for which there is no validity and no valid basis. So ask me to see, not just say that I am not so and so. See the fact that you are not. When pratisheda is done, that you are not a human being, I am not human. It is not a repeating thing. See the fact that human being, how did I say I am human being? Oh, this human being, that this is human being. I am objectifying human being, this body. How to say I am human being? So every negation invites us to look into the mechanism of how I arrived at that conclusion and see for myself that I have no basis, valid basis for that conclusion. Then I can drop it. Well, there is a ground for dropping. I may not drop it. But if I can do that, I am Uttamadhikari. Otherwise, emotional problems are there, then I have to grow, you know. But it is I can see. It is I will not justify that. I will not make it my basis, if nothing else. So this is the teaching process of Vedanta. We'll continue. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti. Karam Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.